Good morning, it's December 4th, and this is To My Liberal Friends. And if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. As we get more data on the election last month, there's some numbers that should scare Democrats and at the very least give them pause. Kamala Harris and the Democrats based their campaign on abortion and turning out women to vote for her on this emotional issue. Once again, they thought that women would vote single-minded on this issue and would ignore any other issues affecting their lives. They believed that women would ignore the prices at the grocery stores and other places they shop. They believed that women would ignore the rising crime in urban areas. They believed women would ignore and not care about the flood of illegal immigrants crossing the border. And they believed women would ignore that Harris seemed incapable of delivering cogent answers to even the most basic questions. It was going to be abortion that the issue alone decided their vote. Now, prior to the election, all we kept reading about was the huge political gap between men and women. The story said this favored Harris because women vote in higher percentages than men. And there was some truth in these stories because polling shows while men have shifted to the right, albeit moderately, women, it was said, according to the media, had shifted to the left in huge numbers. There were reports that Harris was riding a wave of a 32-point gender gap. And this number would allow Harris to roll to victory, and so they kept emphasizing abortion. Well, the data is now coming in. It's not telling the story that was predicted. Harris did win the vote of women, but by only 7 points, 53 to 46. Joe Biden did better than that in 2020. But the most startling numbers was how white women voted. These are supposedly the suburban women who would rise up and angrily go to the polls to show their displeasure at the Supreme Court's decision on Roe v. Wade. But Trump won this group by 53% to Harris 45%. And the Harris team did not see that coming. But the data keeps giving us more surprises. Young women, those that seem to be most energized on the abortion issue, those in the 19 to 29 demographic, seem to be interested in other issues as well. Trump improved substantially on the 33% of this demographic he won in 2020. He moved up 7 points, and he ended up winning 40% of these young women. Yes, that means Harris won 56%, but her 16-point margin is tiny compared to the gap forecasted in the months of media stories about the gender gap. The media kept telling us young women said they'll vote for Harris over Trump by a 33% margin. Young Gen Z women, widely considered Harris' safest demographic, turned their backs on the Democrats in droves to support Trump. The youngest of them, aged 18 to 24, fled Harris in greater numbers, with Trump gaining 11 points on his contest based on what he did in 2020 with Biden. And it's not just the young women of America who roared on election night. Of all age groups, Gen X voted for Trump at the highest rates. And these are the mothers of America, the ones who had watched their teenagers' graduation ceremonies canceled and college have to start on Zoom, forced to watch their kids play outside wearing masks, forced to vaccinate their children even if they didn't want to, forced to try to keep them from going crazy for 2 years while schools were shut, forced to try to afford the high cost of milk and $8 eggs, forced to cut back on Christmas, vacations, and going out to dinner, even to inexpensive family restaurants, forced to say nothing when they watched their children called racist in schools because of the color they were born. Too many of them, the final insult was to watch their daughters lose races and other athletic events to biological males. They were forced to listen to their daughters complain about having boys in their locker rooms and in their bathrooms. They felt cheated when they heard Biden-Harris administration change the rules of Title IX to allow these boys to compete against their girls. A longtime liberal feminist was quoted on the morning of the election in a text to a friend. Quote, "If you told me 4 years ago I'd be voting for Trump today, I would not have believed you." End quote. As a mother of 3 boys, she had seen with her own eyes what they had done to childhood in America. The trans insanity, the DEI indoctrination, the gender mutilation of kids. The moms looked all that and said, "Hell no," at the polls. The media had focused on how Trump won white men with general, and they reported on the gains he made with black men, with Hispanics overall, and with Asian voters. These were all significant gains for Trump and the Republican Party. But you have not heard the media say anything about the numbers I just mentioned, which showed that women did not listen to the constant drumbeat of message of Harris on abortion. What it did show was that Harris and her fellow Democrats once again tried to lump all women together and tell them they had to vote on a single issue and ignore all their problems in their lives. Gen Z and Gen X women in every state have had quite enough of the Democrats' reign of terror and voted for one thing: sanity. The men who voted for Trump are getting a lot of credit for his win, but make no mistake, women came through for Trump in a huge way. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, subscribe.